Our story commences with Zhuangwu, the protagonist, embarking on a journey of self-taught coding and design. Without the support of a team, he independently crafted a game. Exhausted, he reclined in his chair, assuring himself that in 2 more months, he would complete the project, anticipating that his efforts would bring him fortune. Abruptly, his phone rang, Ma Chun-chun calling. Answering the call, Zhuang was confronted by Ma inquiring about the overdue rent payment. He pleaded for a few more days, promising that his game would yield significant income. Ma reminded him that she had heard such assurances before, citing that only 10 people had purchased his previous game, Doomsday, and she was the sole buyer of P-Man. Defiantly, Zhuang asserted that the lack of sales was due to others lacking good taste. Ma countered, accusing him of having poor taste and warned of eviction if he didn't pay by tomorrow. Checking his balance, he discovered only 558 RMB. Frustrated with the sight, he believed that with enough persistence, Ma wouldn't prevail. Undeterred, he resumed typing, aiming to accelerate his work and complete the game swiftly. Suddenly, his computer shut down, and a stream of numbers appeared on the screen. Messages regarding designing the monster's image, finalizing plots, adding more code, and fixing bugs popped up, perplexing him. Bewildered by the apparent vitality of his design, he received a warning of system overload. His computer case crashed, emitting smoke. Despairing, he thought his life was over but noticed a peculiar light still glowing on his computer screen. The interface announced the release of a new fantasy world, declaring the Earth as the launching platform. The progress bar initially started at 15%, then jumped to 30%, ultimately reaching 100%. Upon completion, bright lights emanated from his computer. Tilted to avoid the blinding beam, he felt his surroundings shake uncontrollably. Realizing it was an earthquake, he rushed to the door, flung it open, and dashed out of the building. Once outside, he was stunned to see trees erupting from the ground, crawling up the buildings. Wondering if he was dreaming because the trees looked strangely familiar, the crowd around him panicked, trying to make sense of what was happening. Someone pointed to the sky, exclaiming about an unidentified flying monster colliding with a helicopter. The collision caused the helicopter to explode, and both it and the monster plummeted to the ground. People shouted and fled from the falling debris. In the chaos, a little girl was pushed over and fell to the ground. As she opened her eyes, she saw the monster hissing at her. It stunned him because it was the monster he had designed. A hippogriff with an eagle's upper body, a horse's hindquarters, and feathers as hard as steel. Its danger level was sea level, and its special ability was the ripple scream. The hippogriff stood up and screamed angrily at the people. He ran toward it, knowing it was a bad situation. The hippogriff opened its mouth, looking at a little girl. She closed her eyes in fear. Fortunately, our protagonist grabbed her in time and dragged her away while the hippogriff started to use its ripple scream. He covered the little girl's ears, knowing that he needed to, but he felt pain when he heard the scream. Suddenly, the ground shook uncontrollably. The hippogriff stopped when it heard something running towards it. When the hippogriff looked back, it saw red shining eyes coming at it. It was another furious monster. It then stabbed the hippogriff before it could even react. He saw this and realized that it was the monster named Unicorn Wolf, the overlord of the prairie, with a sharp and strong horn. Its danger level was sea level, and its ability was. He slowly closed his eyes, guessing that he wouldn't have to pay the rent anymore, then collapsed. Later, he opened his eyes when he heard a beeping sound and was surprised to find himself in a hospital. Sitting up, he saw the little girl he had saved and wondered if all those things he had just seen were real. He grabbed the remote near his bed and turned on the TV in front of him. Lisa Oman, the reporter, announced that currently, the height of the trees was over 5,000 meters, and they were just at the tree's waist when something flew towards them. It attacked the reporter, causing the camera to turn off. In the next news segment, the reporter informed everyone that professionals had already dived down 1,000 meters into the giant hole, and they should see what they had discovered. The camera spotted the red glaring eyes, and it attacked the cameraman, causing the camera to turn off once again. On the next channel, the reporter told everyone that it was an emergency announcement. In response to the crisis of humans, they begged the players to report their identities at the players' lobby. He wondered why they needed players, then remembered the hippogriff, unicorn wolf, sky tree, and abyssal pit. It made him wonder why they looked exactly like the settings in the new fantasy world he was creating. Suddenly, an interface appeared. In front of him, a display appeared, revealing crucial details about our protagonist, Zhuangwu. It disclosed that he was at level 1, his profession was a game designer, and he played on a PC. Currently lacking a title, his attributes were specified: HP 100, MP 0, Strength 9, Agility 11, Intelligence 12, Perception 9, Undistributed 0. A note indicated that the average human possessed 10 attribute points. Wu pondered whether the game he designed had somehow infiltrated the real world. Upon attempting to access his inventory, Wu encountered a message informing him that NPCs like him couldn't use the storage and skill panels. Further attempts to explore other features were thwarted by notifications stating he couldn't utilize the change profession system. Saddened by the realization that he considered himself a mere peasant without a distinct identity as a game designer, he found solace in his virtual existence. Suddenly, the door swung open, prompting Wu to hastily recline in bed as he noticed a girl entering. His landlord, Ma Chun-chun, admonished him to cease pretending and pointed out that the TV was still on. Awkwardly, Wu inquired about Ma's unexpected presence, and she clarified that the hospital had instructed her to come. Wu acknowledged Ma's kindness, attributing it to her care, but she humorously retorted that her concern was primarily motivated by the need for rent payment in case he passed away. The little girl, waking up, stared at Wu, attempting to recognize him in the peculiar situation. Corrected sentences. The little girl hugged him happily, calling him dad, and told him that he was finally awake. Ma angrily asked him if he already had a child, but he shouted at Ma to let him explain. Later, after explaining everything, Ma understood and told him that the little girl might have lost her memory, so she would help the little girl register her lost child status. Before the little girl's parents could pick her up, he would have to take care of her. He seized the opportunity and asked Ma if she could lower the rental fee. Ma replied, sure, and angrily grabbed the receipt. She then told him to pay her the medical fee first, which totaled 8,000 RMB. This left him stunned and shocked because of the price. After the disaster occurred, humans resorted to using nuclear bombs against the Sky Tree and the Abyssal Pit. However, they failed to triumph. Instead, they lost control of the sky and relinquished half of their territory. Now, the fate of mankind rests in the hands of the players. Half a year later, in Zhuangwu's house, Wu observed a little girl trying to lift a shield, offering it to him joyfully while calling him dad. He patted Mang Mang's hair, reassuring her that she was a good girl. Mang Mang was a temporary name that Wu had given her. He had attempted to use this name online to locate Meng's parents. Although he received responses, they were from individuals wanting to adopt Meng or someone pretending to be an uncle, claiming that Meng's parents had perished in an accident. He resolutely asked the man for Meng's real name, but the man retorted, asking him if the little girl's name wasn't Mang Mang. He further claimed that thanks to Zhuang's report, their city had apprehended a large group of child kidnappers. 6 months had passed, and Meng's memory was still fragmented. With her parents yet to come and collect her, Meng was fortunate to be a well-behaved child who often assisted with chores, despite occasionally accidentally breaking things. Ma, however, would become infuriated, leading to Wu being charged repair fees, 1,000 RMB for the television and 3,000 RMB for house repairs. At one point, Wu had contemplated sending Meng to an orphanage. However, when she tearfully referred to him as dad, he was moved to comfort her, suggesting that they should return home. The new fantasy world consisted of 2 main monster areas, the underground and the wilderness. The underground monsters were notably formidable, while the wilderness monsters were marginally weaker. Wu arrived at a prairie near S City, where he placed his shovel on the ground and began digging. He did not stop until he uncovered the hidden monster. As the creature lunged into the air to attack him, Wu defended himself with his shield, tightly gripping his shovel and striking the monster, breaking its horn in the process. A notification popped up, announcing that he had killed a jackalope. However, as an NPC, he was unable to gain experience points. After completing the jackalope hunt mission, a notification appeared, indicating that he had slain over 10,000 horned jackalopes, earning him the title Bunny Slayer. Exhausted, he lay on the ground, relieved that his task was finally over. As a game designer, Wu not only created plots for players but also devised many for NPCs. Originally, the Bunny Slayer title was specifically intended for an NPC. According to the plot, an ordinary NPC, after slaying more than 10,000 jackalopes, would trigger a hidden plot and emerge as the hero of the new fantasy world. Alongside the players, they would embark on a crusade to slay the Demon King. Half a year ago, after Zhuangwu discovered the NPC on the prairie, he endeavored to hinder him from hunting jackalopes. Regardless, the NPC continued to slaughter the creatures. Wu mocked the NPC, warning him not to blame him for the consequences of his own actions. Wu dug traps in the prairie to ensnare the NPC, used jackalopes as bait to tire him, and even lured a fang boar to the prairie. The creature attacked the NPC and flung him away. As a result, the NPC ceased to appear on the prairie. Consequently, the world's hero was on the brink of replacement. Later, in the S-City lobby, many players of varying levels gathered. Wu barged in, holding a dead bunny which stunned the crowd. As he walked through the lobby, the people discussed his title, Jackalope Slayer, and criticized his cowardice for merely hunting the lowest level monsters instead of venturing into the underground dungeons. Wu was irked, not being a player but a game designer. He stopped at Lao Zhang's Spicy Rabbit Head shop. Lao Zhang, the owner, was known for his special dish, Spicy Rabbit Head. This item, once consumed, would increase a player's movement speed by 5% for 5 minutes. He informed Lao that he had acquired the jackalope he sought. However, Lao, whose business had been struggling lately, offered him some rabbit heads instead. Wu accepted the plate of rabbit heads with gratitude, oblivious to a girl observing him. The NPC, Lai Kuya, revealed herself, and he was surprised to see her. He was elated that a key character had finally appeared. Being the game's designer, he was aware that Lai Q was not an ordinary NPC but one of the few gods in the game. According to the plot, after slaying 10,000 jackalopes, Kuya should consider him determined and strong-willed, thereby blessing him to become a hero. He addressed Kuya as a goddess and implored her to bestow her blessing quickly. However, she questioned why he had killed the rabbits, which she found adorable, leaving him confused about the apparent plot deviation. Fuming, Kuya labeled him the Bunny Slayer, scolded him for the mass killing of the cute creatures, and then violently threw him to the ground. As she vented her anger by kicking him, even Lao, the owner of the Spicy Rabbit Head shop, was too frightened to intervene. Another player noticed the commotion and recognized Kuya. They wondered whether Wu had provoked her or harassed her inappropriately. Wu, being assaulted, was perplexed, wondering if he should have become the hero had the game altered itself during this time. Suddenly, a notification popped up, revealing that, due to his massacre of jackalopes, he was cursed by the goddess Lai Kuya. As a result of the curse, he was now ostracized by the world, stripped of his human identity, and transformed into a demon. The interface opened his character panel, showing his new race as a demon. His current HP was 35 out of 200, MP was 100 out of 100, Strength was 13, Agility was 15, Stamina was 14, Intelligence was 12, Accuracy was 13, and he had 0 undistributed points. Wu was astounded but not entirely displeased, as the initial attributes for a demon were higher than those of a hero. He thought the ordeal might have been worth it. With tears in his eyes, Wu professed his love to Kuya, but she dismissed him as freaking trash. He looked up and spotted something he was not supposed to see, prompting Kuya to kick him hard, reducing his health to 30. Later, after recomposing himself, Wu realized that becoming a player unlocked previously inaccessible functions. He was pleased as it provided more convenience and spared him the burden of carrying many items during hunts. He opened the skill list and saw Demon Imitation at level 1. This skill could immobilize the target, had a cooldown of 60 minutes, and required 20 MP. The other skill, Demon Transformation at level 1, enabled him to assume a demon form, significantly boosting all attribute points. Its duration was 30 seconds, the cooldown was 24 hours, and it required 80 MP. His new race had talents that provided extremely high agility and defense, specialized in dual-wielding weapons, and had excellent night vision. A notification revealed that demons could not change professions at the player lobby. Upon reaching level 10, he would receive a profession-changing mission. Furthermore, the system would announce his new race to the world and asked him if he wished to hide his name. Wu clicked yes, and a notification immediately congratulated the S-City unknown player for being cursed by the goddess and obtaining a rare race identity, thereby unlocking a hidden plot. Other players also saw this and couldn't believe it. They, too, desired to be cursed by a goddess and planned to congratulate the anonymous player. Unaware that Wu was the player in question and was nearby, some even wanted to supplicate. Wu was amused by the players dedicating themselves to the goddess. Meanwhile, in the building of the Player Management Association, President Lei Q of the S-City Management Association, seated in a chair, also received a notification about the new race. He inquired with his secretary about any major occurrences in their city recently. The secretary reported that the Thunder Dragon Guild had cleared a B-rank underground dungeon, assuring Lei Bingyan the secretary, that the guild had not interacted with any goddess. She also mentioned that the Cloud Soar Guild and Blue Goat Guild hadn't recently attacked any dungeons. Lei asked about unusual events in the player lobby, and Bingyun recounted an incident where a player known for hunting jackalopes angered an NPC and suffered a severe beating. Surprised, Bingyun asked if it involved a kid named Zhuang Wu and whether Lei was keeping an eye on him. Lei explained that he knew Wu's father and directed Bingyun to locate Wu when she had time. Since Wu was afraid of dungeons, Lei suggested recruiting him into their backup team, and Bingyun affirmed her understanding. Later, in the prairie, holding 2 shovels and eyeing a jackalope burrowed in the ground, Wu suddenly sprang from its hole and charged at him. With skillful precision, he swung his shovel down, thumping it onto the ground. A notification popped up, indicating he had slain the jackalope and earned 10 experience points. Now at level 1 with 10 out of 100 experience, he felt a wave of satisfaction at finally gaining experience. In past encounters with jackalope hordes, his only choice had been to flee. This time, however, he was eager to face them head-on. After his transformation into a demon, all his attributes had improved, making the jackalope's movements seem painfully slow. When one of the jackalopes attacked, he easily blocked it. Smugly informing it that its efforts were too slow, he anticipated its every move. He seized its ears, grinning ominously as it collapsed. The subsequent notification revealed that he had leveled up to level 2. Gazing at the defeated jackalope, he recalled his racial abilities. Without hesitation, he activated his demon intimidation skill, shocking the jackalopes and making them faint from fear. He vanquished the prone jackalopes and added them to his inventory, simultaneously leveling up. Days passed as Wu hunted jackalopes, his level eventually reaching 6. However, as his level increased, the experience offered by these low-level monsters decreased. He concluded that hunting jackalopes had become pointless for gaining experience and decided it was time to hunt higher-level monsters. Although the original game design gave players only 1 undistributed attribute point per level. In this world, warriors typically boosted their strength, assassins honed their accuracy, and magicians elevated their intelligence. Wu pondered which attribute to enhance. As he looked up, a gigantic creature in the distance caught his eye, shocking him. It was the Jackalope King, a level 10 prairie wild boss with a horn as hard as steel. Known as a D-level creature, its special ability was Bouncing Crash. Staring at it as it consumed a boar, Wu felt a jolt of fear. The Jackalope King was the first boss he had designed for new players in this fantasy world. With its high HP, resilient skin, and terrifying speed, it was a nightmare for novices. The only realistic strategy for rookies and low-level players was to use a bow to attack it from a distance. Regrettably, all he had was a shovel, leaving him regretting his initial design. Deciding on agility, Wu added his 6 undistributed points, raising it to 21. As a demon player, he was physically superior to an average novice. For the pride of a demon, he resolved to challenge the Jackalope King. However, he quickly retreated, jesting that he was kidding and deriding the jackalopes as a bunch of stupid rabbits. Enraged, the Jackalope King bellowed. Wu retorted, questioning whether it truly thought he would fight and reminding it of his numerical disadvantage. The jackalopes emerged from their burrows, chasing after him, led by the Jackalope King. The king prepared to impale him with its horn using its Bouncing Crash. Wu sidestepped in the nick of time, narrowly avoiding a second. He taunted the king, effortlessly evading its subsequent strikes, all while daring it to land a hit. His high agility allowed him to dodge effortlessly. Furious, the king summoned the jackalopes and ordered them to attack. Wu halted upon hearing the noise and turned back to see a horde of jackalopes led by the king hot on his trail, making him panic. In a stuttering voice, he alerted others that the wild boss, the Jackalope King, had appeared and advised them to retreat swiftly. However, instead of fleeing, the other players seemed thrilled at the opportunity to secure rare loot dropped by the king. They assured Wu that they'd join him, but rather than aiding him, they were also pursued by the Jackalope pack. The players cursed Wu, but he merely grinned, excusing himself to prepare a meal for his child. He bid them farewell, leaving them baffled by his impressive speed and swearing vengeance on him for their current predicament. A few hours later, within Ma's building, he opened his apartment door and was welcomed by a cute Meng. She rushed to hug her father excitedly. He asked her what she did at home today, and Meng replied that the landlady had given her a picture book. After Zhuang Wu adopted Mang Mang, landlady Ma Chunchen often visited, helping to take care of Meng. Ma also warned him sternly not to behave improperly towards Meng. As they greeted each other cheerfully, their stomachs growled with hunger. He assured Meng that he would prepare dinner. Since becoming a father, he had learned to prepare all sorts of fried rice dishes, such as egg and dried radish fried rice, ham fried rice, tomato fried rice, and more. However, when he opened the cabinet, it was bare. He checked the refrigerator and found it was empty too, leading him to realize they had run out of food. Mang saw her father's disheartened look and tugged at Wu's shirt. She cheerfully told him that she wasn't hungry. Observing her, he was reminded that Meng's diet for the past half year had been nothing but mustard with rice, white sugar with porridge, and a single loaf of bread shared between the two of them. He apologized to Mang with a heavy heart, realizing she hadn't lived a good life since he adopted her. He asked if she wanted to eat fried chicken, to which Mang replied that she did. However, her excitement faded as she remembered something and told Wu that she didn't want it after all. When Wu asked why, she explained that if they spent too much money, he wouldn't be able to pay the rent. Wu acknowledged that he still owed Ma 3 months' rent, maintenance, and medical fees, but reassured Mang that they could afford a lavish feast today, even though his balance was a mere 121 RMB. He assured Mang that from that day forward, they would bid farewell to poverty. He then ordered a set of chicken that cost 120 RMB. He knew that in the post-disaster world, the player had become everyone's idol, and many people admired them. These individuals either had a strong physique or unexplainable healing abilities, but most importantly, they were all wealthy, and as long as they possessed the player identity, they could enter dungeons. He also knew that unlike wild monsters, underground monsters dropped monster crystals. One E-level monster crystal could be exchanged for 500 RMB, a D-level crystal for 1000 RMB, and a C-level monster crystal for 2000 RMB. This made him believe that becoming a player could also make him rich. Soon, someone knocked on their door to deliver their Silver Arch family meal set. Wu and Meng ate it with fervor, tears streaming down their faces. As night fell, he tucked a sleeping Meng into bed, carefully pulling a blanket over her. He heard her mumble happily in her sleep about how lovely the French fries were. Subsequently, he returned to his computer desk and checked the chat forum. He saw news that at 4 p.m. that afternoon, the Jackalope King had appeared in the city's suburbs, causing a rabbit horde. 4 players were attacked by the swarm of rabbits and hospitalized. Fortunately, they were rescued in time, and their lives were no longer in danger. He was relieved that the players with him hadn't perished. If they had, he would have been plagued by guilt. The top and trending posts on the forum were all written by him. After the disaster, Wu had been doing his best to assist others in this way. To the players, Wu was akin to a god. However, there were occasional accidents, like the incident where 50 people entered the dungeon, and only 2 survived. According to one survivor, the team leader had over-relied on the dungeon guide and had failed to adapt. Players asked if the god's guide was truly helpful, but he knew that it was his worst guiding failure ever. This failure had led to the creation of multi-level dungeons and a new boss. He understood that it was all due to the system's updates and additional content in the game. In their harsh world, even if they succeeded 99 times, a single mistake could mean the end for them. After that incident, Wu gradually stopped uploading guides.